Okay, hello everybody, it's Runescapefar. Welcome to my video. Today we are going to be talking about Nintendo and why I love Nintendo so much. This will be unbiased, of course, but I will have a lot of personal opinions in here about why I think Nintendo will always be the better gaming console over Microsoft and Sony. So, again, this is my own view. You guys are entitled to your own view, and I respect that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. About Nintendo as a company. Nintendo was founded on September 23rd, 1889 in Kyoto, Japan. I can't pronounce the other part. Nintendo, actually at the time, did not actually manufacture any video games. They were actually making playing cards and toys, as I will show you a picture here in a little bit. It wasn't until 1985 when Nintendo created the NES, or the Nintendo Entertainment System. So that's when Nintendo actually entered the video game industry. But also, that's also where they started to revolutionize how we play our video games today. Nintendo has determined what aisle they go into, who we advertised to. For the longest time, we advertised to families until the great video game crash. At that point, the video game aisles was pretty much nothing, so there was only the blue aisle and the pink aisle, the boys and girls aisle. It was here that Nintendo decided to put the Nintendo games in the boys aisle. And thus all their advertising at that time was strictly geared towards boys. And that's how it was pretty much up until the Wii. The Wii was basically the rebirth of Nintendo advertising family games. And if you think about it now with the Xbox and the PlayStation, they followed Nintendo's pattern. And a lot of their games were advertised towards males, not females. The only games at the time that were, and still mostly are, geared towards women are the micro-paying games of mobile gaming, like Bejeweled. That's an old one, I know, but Bejeweled is one of them. Candy Crush Saga, just those type of games. Those are the more games geared towards girls, and it's thanks to Nintendo that that's why those are being advertised to them, because the most common video games are made for guys. The ones that are made for girls are never really advertised. You never see them advertised on TV. Mostly the games for guys, and you can thank Nintendo for that. Now let's get down to the bare bones of this video. What makes Nintendo amazing to me? Why do I love Nintendo so much over everything else? It's ability to go beyond the boundaries. If you think of a Microsoft Xbox 360 and a Sony PlayStation 3, the consoles themselves look almost identical. The controllers are almost identical. Everything about them is pretty much identical, except for the graphics, the games, and all that stuff's different, but the console's layout and designs are pretty much the same, with maybe a few select features that the Xbox may have that the PlayStation doesn't. But Nintendo has always said, screw that, we're going outside the box. And that's why we have a lot of the games we have today, as well as the console designs we have. I mean, take a look at the newest creation, the Switch. It's a handheld console that you can plug into a home and make it a console that could go on the TV. That is just amazing. You will never see Microsoft or Sony come up with that idea, because they didn't. Nintendo did. The Wii with the motion controllers. Nintendo started off with that, then Microsoft, Microsoft, of course, created the Switch, and then Sony created the Sony controllers that are the little controllers with the ball thing. I don't know, my uncle was blabbing about how that was so great over the Xbox Kinect, which it probably was, since the Kinect was a big failure. But Nintendo originally started that, the Handheld Wars. Yes, Sega did have some handheld ones, and there was the Linux handheld, of course. But Nintendo took the market by storm. PlayStation tried to compete with the PSP and then the PSP Vita, but look where that's at now. Nowhere. It's gone. Bye-bye. Boosh. Gone. 3DS, still here today. And they're still making handhelds, so they revolutionized how we played video games with that. And let's also take a look at the prices of these consoles. The first Nintendo 64 to ever be released, back in 1996, a year after I was born, was $166. The PlayStation, when it was first released in the 90s, costed twice as that. Every video game console has cost more than Nintendo. Nintendo has always been the cheapest gaming console out there, and that's another reason why I love it. Now, Nintendo is, of course, starting the monthly thing to play online, which I don't like, but I can see why they need to do it to be competitive with today's gaming market. But in the past, Nintendo has always had free internet, just like Sony did, so you can play with your friends. But now even then, Sony started doing that, where they charge you now to play Sony Live, or PlayStation Live, whatever it's called. I don't own a PlayStation 4 or 3, I only have a PlayStation 2 that's never been connected to the internet. Unupdated since it came out. There are the original software. But, back to Nintendo. Nintendo has also created so many games that you can play as a family. Like, there's a lot of family-oriented games in there, so majority of the Nintendo games you go by, you can play with your family. Now, there are some third-party, but there's not a lot of third-party games, and they can actually pull it off because they're loyal to their fans. They don't do things like kill off characters, remove characters, like many game developers do who design games for Sony and Microsoft. That makes fans unhappy. But Nintendo, they actually care about the fans. They're a businessman then, but at heart, they're a gamer, and they know what gamers want. That's another reason why I love Nintendo. Anytime I've emailed them for help, they've been quick to respond back, and they've always been so helpful. When I've had problems with Microsoft or Sony for any of their games, even the third-party games, they would always send me to a broken website that used to be for the game, but is no longer. And like with the PC games, half of my games with the newest update just became obsolete and can no longer be played on my Windows 10 computer. Whereas my Nintendo Switch, I can still play all my favorite games. And also, unlike Xbox and PlayStation, the virtual console that Nintendo offers is a true commitment to keeping the classics alive as a fan. They don't go and revamp it like Microsoft does and then charges you an arm and a leg for it when you basically have the same thing, just better graphics. They give you the same exact game, untouched, just put on a console. That's something Microsoft and Sony needs to learn. When you go back and remake a game, you can't mess with the storyline. You gotta keep everything original. They have not learned that yet. Nintendo has learned that. And that's why they don't alter it. Now, if they release a different version, it could be the same game, but they'll alter it like Super Mario 64 for the DS. They added a bunch of other characters. Now, personally, I didn't like that game for the fact that I still prefer the Nintendo 64 version, but it still shows that Nintendo did try that once. They learned that it didn't work. Fans didn't like it. So they stopped doing it and just uploaded the original game. My friend got Donkey Kong 64 on the Wii U, and I played it. I was very skeptical because, again, they just redid Super Mario 64 on the DSi, and they completely changed it. So I'm like, okay, let's see what they're going to do. They're probably going to put in the modern version of Tiny Kong, which is very over-sexualized. Don't know why they did that. But when I actually sat down and played it, it was the exact same game, just on a Wii U. And that's what I like about them, because they're preserving the games. They're not re-uploading them and completely changing them. They are preserving it. Like even the first Resident Evil remastered on the Xbox 360, they've added DLCs in there that weren't in the original game because it was for the PlayStation. We didn't have DLCs. And there was no BSAA characters, so they just added so much other stuff into it that it's not really the same game anymore that you could get from playing the very first one. And actually, with the first Resident Evil, the graphics is what made it scary. The crappy graphics, the poor lighting, zombies get high in like the dark areas that you can't see well and just pop out. It added to the jump scare with the music. But back to Nintendo, they know how to treat their old games with respect, and I'm glad that they got the Virtual Boy on the Switch coming up so I could get some of those older games. Again, I did order a NES retro bit thing. It's like the Atari thing, so it has a bunch of games preloaded into it, so I can't wait to get that and start playing that. But again, that just shows you that they are bringing back their classics that they knew fans grew up with and loved and passed on to their children and will continue to pass on to their children. Nintendo has always made great quality stuff. Whereas Microsoft and Sony, let's just take a look at like this. There's one Nintendo 64. There's one NES. There's one SNES. There is one Wii. There is one Wii U. There is one Switch. Now there's a variety of different type of Game Boys, but each one's completely different. As with the graphics, nothing was ever changed because there was a problem with it. Let's take a look at Microsoft's Xbox 360. The first Xbox 360 Classic, the white one, overheated a lot, red ring of death. Second one, Xbox 360 Elite, again red ring of death, not as much, but still common. Overheating. The interior sides would get so hot it would actually melt and fry itself. And then you had the Nintendo Slim, or Xbox 360 Slim. And as you can see right there, that was two previous failures. That Xbox, instead of just fixing the problem, they just went out and made a whole new console that was the same thing, but they just added a couple new features and charged you even more for it than what the first one cost. Nintendo, they fixed the problem there. They don't keep on making consoles just because the first one was crappy and broken and then charging more for their mistakes. They don't do that, and that's why I love them. I mean, look how long it takes Nintendo to come out with consoles compared to Microsoft and Sony, where they have a new console almost every single year now. They're releasing them. I mean, the Xbox 360 Elite came out, and then they were already talking about the Slim, and then when the Slim came out, there was the Xbox One X, which was originally advertised. If you look at, it's a robot fighting movie, they actually do have it advertised as the Xbox One X, or the Xbox X, I think it was. So that was the original one, then that became the Xbox One, and then when the Xbox One came out, then they started talking about the Xbox One X. So they're automatically upping themselves right then and there. So it's like you just bought an outdated console. Nintendo doesn't do that. It lets its consoles age a little bit before they release the newest console. Now they may release variations like the 3DS XL or like the DSi XL, but it's still the same console. It's not a new console. In reality, that's the reason why I love Nintendo so much. They're family friendly, they always have great games on their consoles, and also their games are revolutionary. Super Mario 64, which was created in the 90s, led the gaming industry, and we can thank it for having the graphics today. Also, their game Hey You Pikachu was the first ever game to allow you to actually talk to a character in a game and control a character with your voice. They also had a game of Tetris from Japan only, which controlled the game based on your heartbeat. So faster heartbeat, the blocks move faster. Slower heartbeat, it's moved slower. And then of course with the SNES, they also had the ROB attachment, which was your robotic assistance. I forgot what ROB actually stands for, but he would have very few select games and he would help you play them. Nintendo has always been the first to do those things. They were the first one to have a touchscreen game console. They're the first one to create a game console that was 3D and you didn't need 3D glasses, which I loved it so much because I have glasses. 3D glasses always fall off for me. They're very uncomfortable to wear over glasses. I like holding a console and be able to use 3D feature that does not require me to have a 3D TV, which are extremely expensive, and I still have to wear the glasses, which fall off and again are very uncomfortable. But Nintendo found a way to cut the glasses and the TV out, put it into a small console, which I love so much. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please subscribe and leave comments. And have a nice day. Live, love, and game on. Peace.